was like one of the languages of life in my reality growing up.
Just art.
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing all the different stuff.
And not even clocking it until being an adult. And it's so funny that we're talking about this right now because I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this last night. Like how even though I went through, all of my emotional garbage and stuff. Let's not even say garbage, but all my emotional turmoil as a youth. Like, if there's one thing that, like, had I had the capacity to open my eyes and see and recognize, I've always had a super fan in my mother. And I think I've known it at different times, but being an adult and sitting in the house and realizing how much of my art is on my mother's wall, and then the fact that that one that she bought at the market earlier this year, Earth to You, is still sitting in the bubble wrap until she finds the spot when she's cleaned the house that she wants to have it hang. Yeah. Like, that's like a crazy honor for me. I'm like, yo, like, I am so blessed. Like, I am so fortunate. Because, like, how many people, especially creatives, can say, like, yo, one of my biggest supporters is the person who raised me. Whereas with artists, it seems like you more often than not hear a different version of that tale. And I had to believe in myself. I had to do it myself. My family still thinks it's a joke. Or my family ain't take it serious until there was bankrolling in. And then all of a sudden there was fictitious, like, oh yeah, we always knew they had a gift. But to be able to say I had parents that reared me telling me I was gifted and talented and worthy and that I could do it, so that I can stand here and be like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. Even if I've never done it before. They gave me, they helped instill the confidence in me for me with at least a good bit of stuff, at least art related, to be able to feel confident and comfortable and saying like, yeah, I'm sure I can pull that off. I can figure that out. I can do that.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Not crazy, just like crazy dope.
And it makes such a difference. Like, I cannot imagine who I would be if I didn't have that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the way your brain operates and the way we're so different when it comes to approaching art, and that I'm just like, okay, I'll work my way up to being able to do something dope, and you're just like, nah, I'm just go walk up to it and do something dope. And we're cool. We're both cool with that part, I guess. But on the back end, what we were talking about, where you were saying, that on the back end, if it doesn't pan out, how that's kind of hard or harsh.
Yeah, like psychologically, like that used to eat my ego up or like trigger my ego, because it used to be like, oh, I have failed, I'm a failure, like I'm not good at this, and I did not prime myself or prepare myself to be anything other than an artist. Like there was never, I truly was the person who was like, there's no plan B. Like I took that to the nth level. Like I do not have any other fixations and things of that nature that I'm like, oh, I could transition into this and be okay. And sure, one could argue that like writing, yeah, I could figure that out, remix that, and like figure out how to make that a different career path. But to me, that's still the art. So I think, yeah, I would literally struggle when I would have the experience of step into something for the first time and it not panning out, because it would be this kind of, I think in my mind, this correlation to a fall from grace. It'd be like, oh, so I don't got it anymore. Yeah. I don't got the juice anymore. The gift, it's spent. The well is dry.
That's what I wanted,
and it's just over.
How long does it take to recover when something like that happens? Like, does
now it doesn't
in a couple minutes, or
now it doesn't take long at all. Like now, I almost don't even have that moment unless it is like my chosen art. Like when an abstract piece or indigo ore piece doesn't come out, yeah, that shit hurts. But when it's something else, especially not one of my core practices, I really am able now to be like, that's 100,000% ego, bruh, being bruised. Like, you are literally okay. There's nothing wrong with your first try at something, or your first few, or just period. Any moment I step to a palette or a canvas of any sort, there's nothing wrong if it doesn't go quote unquote the right way, and that there is no the right way, and acknowledging that yes, some things will indeed really take time, practice, and cultivating of the skill, and that it really is okay if in first go rounds it takes cultivating and not just hopped in here and it was you're a natural. But and then also being able to acknowledge that some people would say that it is rare the proclivities I have to just go out and do something and actually having it pan out more often than not, that I'm either all right or pretty damn good at it. And so then I keep that in mind too, that at least how things have been spun in the world that we live in, or at least seem to be shared just in regular pop culture or society, is that does not seem to be the norm. Since we have like the words like prodigy and things of that nature, I keep in mind that, okay, it is considered abnormal, the fact that some of the stuff I can do and just step up to it and just do it, that a lot of people don't have A, that urge, or B, the follow through, or C, that it just doesn't even happen even if they do have that urge and follow through and do it, that their results are not the results that I find that I have. And so acknowledging that, like, yo, to even pull back
the results.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the results may not be dope. Somebody could be, there's so many people who come out with shit that's dope but don't know it and they doubt it and they just put it in a pile like, that's some bullshit. Like, seems like psyche plays a role.
Psyche definitely played a role. Like, I think definitely being affirmed as a child that I was worthy, that my artwork was good. And I think also I had a balance. Like, I definitely had very blunt parents that also were like, oh, okay, honey, that's nice, that's cute. But would keep it real with me, especially the older that I got. Like, they let me know when it was a knock out the park. And they would let me know. I was like, okay, sweetie, I'm glad you're still trying. I'm glad you're still stepping up to the plate.
Oh man.
So, but I had both, and so yes, my little child ego would be devastated.
It's hilarious, man. 'Cause I hear your mother's voice.
And so my little childhood ego would be devastated, but also they fostered me in such a way that when it was that good, that like, okay, you went somewhere with that one, they would let it be known, like that wasn't hidden. And so it made the other parts not feel as bad, and there was enough of the other that made me willing to continue to show up to discovering my, oh shit, I forgot that. Did you close that gate?
Yeah, he and I walking close to
okay.
He's trying to let himself in.
That I think made the biggest difference, is that I got the opportunity to have hope and faith and belief in myself, and if not myself, my talent. Because sometimes I'm like, dang, this shit ain't got shit to do with me. And find it hard, like many artists do, to like claim over like being great or being able to do the thing. Like how now I do identify more as like, the channel, the conduit of just, universal energy and universe and etc. Especially because most of my work is just, like I said, showing up at the canvas and just seeing what happens, like just showing up to the process and like without this is how it's gonna come out. But I think that's why music is so different for me too, is because I don't show up to music in that way once it's been written.
What do you mean?
Kind of like what you were saying in the car. Once it's written, I would get stuck in like, it has to sound like this, and then be frustrated when it does not come out of my mouth the way it was in my head, the way it was in my mind, the way I heard it and saw it coming together in my mind. Not being able to be like, okay, well that's just, not being able to pivot and be like, okay, well that's not what's channeling right now, so we're just gonna have to pivot. It would then be like, no, I'm just gonna have to figure out how to make it sound exactly how it sounded in my head, and if it doesn't sound the way it sounded in my head, then it's a failure.
Yeah, that's a challenge right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That one's really that creates a lot of turmoil for a lot of people, I've noticed. But I think that's where I've always loved being in the lab. Being able to figure it out on the fly, because I always knew that. Well, I didn't always know. I think I learned that early, and maybe that's just I learned it so long ago that I forget what it was like having learned that lesson. But yeah, I think that might be one of the places where the confidence problem came in for me too, was because I would always write something and then it would take so long to do it, and then I didn't practice frequently, which was the big practice. I didn't practice frequently, which I think was what really made that turn that into a problem. Like, it didn't have to be the problem that it became, because I didn't have the problem before I moved from Virginia up here.
And I was gonna say, I think that may also be where a support system comes into play and makes it different.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. I didn't quite know what to do with that, and I didn't know where to turn. And it's not anybody else, and it's not one of those, like, I could see how somebody else might blame somebody else in a situation like mine, and maybe former me could have, but I can see very easily, like, yo, if you just learned how to ask for help, what could that have done? I don't know how that was said, but
but I got you. I know where
New English.
I know where we're at. I know where we're coming from.
Yeah, New Testament. I'm working on that. It's Sunday. I'm sorry. But yeah, I was glad you mentioned that too, because I was wondering, like, when we were in the car and I was talking about that, as I started talking, I was like, oh, hold on, I wonder how she feels about that, but I didn't want to. I was so caught up in, like, trying to finish the thought, I forgot to circle back on that. Because I definitely didn't want it to be a thing where I was like, well, damn, I feel like I'm saying this shit to be subliminally saying some shit either. Because I was like, I know we just had, yesterday, and I was like, but she was doing great with pivoting and everything. So I was like, I don't know if
I've been able to get better and better at that. But it definitely used to be a struggle. And sometimes still is. And so, I definitely had to pull out a couple times yesterday and be like, yo, you're supposed to be having fun. Like, I kept talking to myself, talking myself through the Rick Rubin, the regard everything as play. Like, just play. Like, just play. This is supposed to be fun. If it's not fun, all right, it's time to pivot. It's time to give it a break. It's time to give it a rest. And then, I was glad you brought food, because it was like, oh yeah, you are a little fatigued because you're hungry, and, you've been chronically tired for a while. So,
the session can't just be about going down and just standing in front of a mic. Not for me. I'm glad that rocked well with you.
Yeah. And I've always been cool with the session. It was just, that fixation on, the perfectionist thing, the one take big, and then the egoic idea of, like, I am the one take big. I can't do that.
Yeah.
If there's something wrong if I can't do it. I've lost my touch. I'm no longer the golden child.
But that thought occurred to you at some point. Well, feelings like that occurred at some point for you.
Not yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't think so yesterday.
But yeah, formerly, which is why I was saying, like, yesterday it was just about reminding myself to come back into play and to not get so serious with it and to not feel like I was doing something wrong or failing, but it never went that far to where it used to go to. It's like, oh, I'm no longer the golden child. I'm not, the gift has waned. I've squandered it, or I missed my opportunity.
Yeah, see, that shit happened to me. The squandered, missed my opportunity. Like, I think in the back of my head, I never said it out loud. I think there was a time in my head where I felt like that. Like, the window when I could have been, and I missed that window. So now I'm always just gonna be blah blah blah. And there was never something I said in my head, but I think that feeling and that sentiment settled into me somehow. That's cool, man.
And it's understandable because, again, like I was mentioning earlier, we are in a society that really does kind of tout that, like, that there is an expiration date, and if you haven't done it by such and such a time, like we were just talking with a friend yesterday on the phone who said that, like, we're past the time, the place, the age of being able to, quote unquote, fuck up or, lose certain shit. And it's like, that has trapped so many of us. Yeah. This idea that we are on this time continuum that has constraints and parameters on when and how long you can or should do something and when your time is up. And it's like, nah, my time's not up until I kick the bucket. Like, as long as I'm in this physical form, I got opportunity. I got time. I got potential. I've got opportunity. Like, it's on me until I am no longer me.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as I am capable, I'm going to be giving that good front, that good effort, and having fun with it. Because I think that's the other thing that saddens me is realizing, like, so many people who have that disposition have just given up. So they're just sort of
Ding, ding.
existing through the rest of their life in hopes of being
as a shell
safe.
and a zombie.
Yeah, in hopes of being safe.
Well, some people pivot up successfully. I imagine. Sorry.
Well, yeah, but I mean the people who use that particular language of like it's over, it's a cat at this age, like
that was me. That was definitely me.
And so I'm really grateful
it
now.
Still is me in a lot of ways. Like I don't take rhyming seriously as an avenue for, or not just rhyming, but making music. I still don't take it seriously as a means of making money for me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe that's a byproduct of that. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but
no, I understand.
Kind of revelation in real time.
But I think that's the really cool part too, is the fact that you've had that experience. Seeing you in the new place that you are now, like how last month during like the early onset of a lot of our move stuff being solidified that this is definitely what's happening, you were in a place of music is just done. After we move from here, it's just over, it's done.
Well, rhyming part.
Yeah.
The exploration part of where I wanted to go with it.
But now it seems like that has shifted.
Yeah, I think I found another way that I can do a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still don't see myself being able to do the things that I wanted to do yet, like really explore my voice, like the bellowing and shit. Mm-hmm. I don't see myself doing that in an apartment building still. But I see other ways I can work around it. And
then also how we've said that we're clear that apartment's not happening.
Yeah, true.
So that's already been erased and alleviated. But seeing how even then you had kind of like recoiled and pulled back. Like it was like after you said that, it was like, okay, well, it was like you were almost already preparing yourself to just be done already and had pulled away. And then seeing you in the last several weeks re-immerse, and then yesterday during my break, seeing you dive back into yours and just be in your pocket and continually, even through to the second one with the reel, like just seeing that is, to me, with my humble perspective, that is clearly where, to me, your heart and your passion is right now. And so it makes me so grateful and happy and honored to be witness to you exploring yourself, your craft, and your heart getting to do what it clearly feels like it is screaming and shouting to do, and seeing you exploring a communication method and style that genuinely I think makes a difference. Like how you were like, it would be really wild if all of this stuff with the unnamed current rap beef was intentional by a certain party and it was being used as a reason and to slide in message eventually. I think you have the capacity and do the same, because a lot of your work then winds up being conversed around, especially when you guys have graceful calls and talk about your different verses, like seeing the response and reaction different people have to like, oh, that's what that meant, oh, that's what that double entendre was, like that's what you also, the split meaning of these things, that's where you went with it. I was thinking you meant this and this, but you actually were in a whole nother field referring to this as well. Like, I think that is another one of your languages that makes major impact, and not to place any of that psychology on you either. But it's just beautiful to see you giving yourself permission to explore that, like permission to roam the cabin regardless. And that was what made me a little sad, or not made me, but I felt a little sad with the idea of seeing that be lost. But I think that also encouraged me to step back into my mystical scientist bag and be like, no, that's not what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's not what we're allowing to happen. And being in a state of power reclamation, like even as we've gone through the whole shifts and the changes in the house, being in a different place, in a place of peace with it, and also affirming like everything's happening exactly how it needs to, and that there's no way where we don't wind up good.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, like, regardless of all the whatever is happening out there, like in here, and within self and within self as us, this unit, this whole, this family, we're good.
Yeah.
And there's no other way in, through, about, around it. Like, it just is, period. And being able to be back in that space and in that bag of like, yeah, I let myself get shook for a moment. Cost you nothing, pay me no mind. Yeah, forget that. We had to double back, but we're here now.
It was a journey we needed to go on. I think we can have greater empathy now, which I think we needed. I think every single step is exactly what was supposed to happen, so we could learn the things and shore up and really like build some pillars around this shit. So, yeah. I love this journey.
Me too. And so now it's just like, I'm not tripping off of it, but grateful that because of both of our experiences and how you literally say it, how you're dragon and the fairy, which is ironic because you say you're my anchor, the tether to the ground, but dragons fly too. Like how you're able to anchor me with your weight when you need to because of the experiences that you have, but I'm able to lift you as the fairy and remind you got wings and you need to fly too because of how I was fostered with the I can do anything syndrome. And so I bring the we can do anything syndrome and you bring the like, okay, here's some rationale, here's some rooted groundedness, here, like, and when truly necessary. Like our signs, like, you're an Aries, so the ram, even you keep some dug in, like dirt, grounded energy, whilst me and the wind is up here, like doing the things as an Aquarius. But then Aquarius and water bear, you're fire. We also then do some damage when we link up, and damage in the best way possible of like that combined force, bringing what both of us have the rooting and anchoring in, like, because of your rearing, you really got that rational process mind to think through, to consider, to do process, where I come from the place of like art, magic, create, it can just be done. Time.
And I'm going to do it now.
Yeah. But that combination, and the more and more we've found ways to synergize that, we're doing freaking incredible, amazing things, and seeing us both be able to learn and take from both of those experiences instead of feeling alienated. I think the way we did earlier on in our relationship with being like, yo, you don't fucking make sense. Like, why are you being like this? Why can't you see that this is not the way to be and it doesn't work like this? To now being like, oh, like you said, there's a lot to learn, and this middle ground has created this incredible understanding and empathy and with each other, but also filling in places where we absolutely needed to have filled in. Like, I needed somebody who was rational and grounded to help anchor me in and help show me the ways that some things sometimes do need to be processed out and organized to really not be stressful or overwhelming. And you needed someone to help you learn how to really throw paint on the wall and get loose and just be like, we just gonna fuck it, we ball. And like bringing both of those energies together. And so me pulling out a little bit of your chaos and inner child that was stifled, and you helping to learn me a little bit on like, okay, but sometimes there is something to being patient, being organized, doing steps, putting together a flow and order to the fuck, I'm just gonna do whatever. I'm a fairy, so here, there, bye. And now I now have stronger and better project completion ability because you've helped bring organization and anchoring into my life, but you've also helped re-encourage me to dive further and deeper into my chaotic fairy energy because it is all of love and from love. And so reminding me like, that's your superpower. So even when I do get in my head, because I feel like, okay, well, maybe just how I am is a problem, you are often reminding me that, no, that's an asset. We would, and how will you joke, like, yeah, we wouldn't leave the house if it wasn't for you. Like, if it wasn't for me, like, reminding me how that energy, my beingness in that way is part of what makes the largest difference in where we are right now. And so, and helping me embrace that, and both of us being able to really, 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 truly now be 100% comfortable in how we exist and how we're creating this magical collaboration of a lived experience now, because we are both strongly walking in like our strong suits and helping each other sharpen that strong suit in each other, where it's not as anchored in yet or stabilized and doesn't come, quote unquote, as natural. And not even natural, but just it needed some watering in a different way that, like, yeah, one could argue I probably don't need any extra watering in the department of certain things like chaotic energy and willingness to sometimes, depending on what it is, be like, no, we can do it. Let's do it right now.
Yeah.
Like, no one needs to convince me further on most of that for the most part. Yeah, I'm pretty good with affirming and promoting self-propelling myself in that way. But then, and also keeping going and keeping that strength and keeping that faith. Like, I'm eternally grateful for you and my mother for the times when I don't have that on lock, and you guys mirror and remind me, like, no, this is who you are. And you have to lean into that. Like, this is where the liberation will continue to exist and be, is in you being. And I'm seeing the same for you.
Fear of where what's going to happen to your spark if you don't. Like,
yeah.
That's the biggest thing. It's like, if she's not doing this, what is going to happen to her soul and her spirit? And then what's going to happen to the whole world, the whole universe? It feels like the whole universe is going to stop existing at that point if that happens.
No.
That's like what do you call it? One of those canon events or cataclysmic events. It's an incursion.
A nexus being.
Yeah, it's some kind of nexus event. I don't know. So, yeah. But.
Or whatever the new one that they're talking about in Marvel, the one that if they die in the universe, the pillar person, that the universe collapses if that person collapses.
Yeah. So I'm grateful we have. And I was thinking about when you were talking about how we kind of balance each other out. I was like, yo, and how that we took the time and it was a process. It made me think about when you're balancing an object. You set it on there at first, it's gonna wobble a little bit, but it takes time for it to settle. And for us, it's just been 4 years.
Yeah.
And this is just a degree of settling. It's not a perfect balancing. I think it'll probably be kind of like one of those things that you put on the desk for you that has like the ball suspended from the wire, and you pull
Ding,
one ball
ding.
and let it go, and they just keep going perpetually. Like I feel like we're gonna reach a state of perpetual balance in that form too, where maybe we have now.
And I think that's kind of where we're really getting to right now. Yeah, now that you mention it, is we're getting more and more comfortable with understanding that is part of the flow.
It's a process.
And that learning and understanding how to more fluidly allow ourselves to work with that balance and be a part of the dance of the push and pull instead of the resistance of, but now being like, oh, okay, it's now time to, lean a little bit more to this section or sway a little bit more that way. Like, oh, okay, I can now, we're more nimble on our feet and in our spirit and in our energy. Yeah, like we are far more nimble now and able to navigate it in a whole different way that has made a large difference.
Yeah, before it would create shutdowns or conflict.
And what is it? Pitted against each other. Like, instead of us together figuring it out, it became an energy of me versus you, and you just don't do it this way. And like, if you could just, like, we both have moments of like, if you could just like get it together and just do it this way, and since you don't, like, I either got to just do this by myself or I'm just completely misunderstood. Boy, our inner children went through the motherfucking ringer. Gosh.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, it was all part of the journey, the growth. It was necessary, but my goodness.
And you having the patience and to figure out how to bring up the conversations in the hard times that were a challenge for me to figure out, and where I just get stuck and frozen, like that was a linchpin or a release valve to, like, if we hadn't been able to converse about so much stuff that was taboo and just the impossible to talk about subjects or things that just you wouldn't even think need to be discussed.
And again, I had to thank my parents because I witnessed that as a child. Like, growing up, seeing that and idolizing, like, okay, this is what, if I'm going to get married, this is what it's going to be like. And then just even, this is how you human.
Yeah.
That changed just relationships for me as a whole. Like, okay, this is what happens. Like, just growing up with the understanding, not understanding that is not the general understanding, but growing up with the concept of this is how you interact with other people. This is how you are kind and considerate to other people. This is how you maintain relationships. This is how families interact and engage. This is how friends interact and engage. Like, this is how you are a quote unquote decent person in society.
Did you also get the if you don't that comes with that? Like, is there something?
No, there wasn't really a if you don't. The only place that if you don't came was like if there was issues and it felt like there was something being held out on, and there was kind of like a no, you kind of have to, in this scenario. Yeah, but understandably so, because sometimes there really was something that was going on, and therapy really helped with that. Yeah, no, it never felt like my parents created such a safe space that I was the kid that was like the rule we had was like, okay, you done gotten into some shit. We want to hear it from you first before we hear it from anybody else. And so they created that safe space to where I was calling them before the teacher could even get a chance to shoot off that email, make that phone call at lunch. I was immediately on the phone figuring out how to borrow somebody's phone before I had a phone to be like, hey, yo, this is what happened. Somebody finna call you, or this is what it's going to be when you come pick me up, or you got to come pick me up early because... Yeah. Yeah. So they really did foster that trust and that bridge of like communication can make the difference, and really help me understand that like this it was important, and that was how they became like, even though yes they will stand by forever that they not one of my little friends, but they literally became friend adjacent and not just what I think at the time it was believed that was all that parents were. Like my parents were the kid, my father infamous for it, were people being like, how does he know that word? How is he hip to the culture? How does he know da 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 da? It's because like we actually have a relationship. Like I talk to him about these things and we have conversations about these things, and I be letting him know what's good and what this means or what that means when we talking about whatever. Like my parents is cool. Like they just like that. And so I don't have this weird barrier of like, oh, I don't want them to know. Like people were forever surprised being in the kitchen at my house or at the dining table, and my parents chime in on some conversation that was just between us and be like, they know about that? They know what that is? Like, yeah, bro. They know.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Like, yeah. Like, and in the last, 4 or 5 years of my dad's life, like homeschooling me, like that was my best friend. Like we rolled on going everywhere together, but that was because they fostered that sense of communication. And then after going to therapy, like therapy was really what gave me the relationship with my father, because that was one place where we had still struggled, was having a communication line that went through for both of us in a way that we could both feel like we were seen, heard, understood. And I would definitely have to say like therapy made that possible, and his openness to even consider coming in, because he was very resistant to it at first. But yeah, I definitely would have to give all of who I am credit to my parents. Really going above and beyond not to be their parents. Like I feel like this is the one time, or one of the only ways that I've gotten to experience or know where parents had the intention not to become their parents and they didn't. Yeah. Like, or were different enough that for me to be able to say like, you definitely were not like your parents. Like my grandfather never smiled. I got plenty of memories of my father smiling and deep belly laughing. Like they broke themselves so many generational curses that I am the byproduct. I get to be the fairy byproduct of the work that they did. And I think that's why, like, I am so determined so often to, like, if there's something that I love or someone that I care about, determined to see through at least giving communication a chance, because I saw the 20 plus year marriage benefit of having communication, even when that shit was hard. Watching them go through and seeing it as a child.
It was
but
hard for you to see the times when it was really hard as a child.
Oh yeah, there were plenty of times where I was like, my mom, like, why don't you leave this man? Like, you don't deserve, like, because of all the stupid shit I done seen on TV. But having that, but then also seeing that that never happened, and I got to watch her, even though it was heartbreaking, grieve the love of her life. And that my little childhood, what I thought I knew, was never acted upon or, like, grew legs. Because that does happen in certain cases. And some people do listen to their kids if their kids are like, this is not it. You need to leave. Yeah. Like, that actually does have impact. I've seen that experience.
I've been a party to that experience.
Yeah. And so since that is a known potential, like the fact that that did not happen and the fact that I got to get learned myself in that way of, like, some things are just actually worth going through go through, even when it's ugly and even when it doesn't make sense to anybody else around and it seems like you should quit. I got to witness firsthand the magic that gets to happen on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And then also get to see what the potential is. Like, so there could be another little human running around like me if I show up to my love and my heart, my passion, my dream, my relationship, my union. If I show up like that, there's a potential for someone even more radical than me to have the potential to exist and continue to create more change. That's fucking inspiring.
Yeah, that's magical. And
yeah.
The idea alone is magic.
And, like, being able to embrace and celebrate that my parents broke what is now all of the trend. Before it was a trend or even a conversation, that my parents were actively breaking generational curses by just being themselves and continuing to learn and life the way that they were. And in front of 3 kids. Three wildly different kids and 3 arguably just chaotic children. And not that all children aren't chaotic, but they had a special cocktail.
Yeah. Almost free range, as you say, right? Not quite free range.
Not quite, but like yeah, an expression definitely. Away,
yeah. It's like, did you ever hear were you ever told, what was it, like, children don't speak around adults or stuff like that? I forget what the saying is. This is like a common saying.
To be seen, not heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't speak when adults are talking, stuff
we
like that.
We got a little bit of the don't speak when the adults were talking. But that kind of, I feel like, if my memory serves me right, that kind of quickly turned into understand when, and we were more so reared towards, excuse me, pardon me, excuse me, I have a question, or is it okay for me to speak? Is it okay can I ask something? We were more reared in the, especially, like, don't sit there if there's something wrong, if you genuinely need something or you actually really have a question that has something to do with this and it's not something that we're going to tell you is none of your business. Like, it was encouraged. Like, that really was one of the biggest things they encouraged, was we would rather know than not know. Like, we would rather, even if it's something stupid and we tell you later, okay, next time, that can wait. That is not something that needs to interrupt an adult conversation. But yeah, we definitely weren't in the house shut down in that kind of traumatizing way from adult conversations. And there were moments where we were, but also, like, in hindsight, I was like, yeah, you definitely, that just was not, that just was not where you needed to be, and it was just not information that you needed to have, because also, monkey see, monkey do, you're a child, your mouth you word vomit everywhere, so, and your discretion is not discretioning at that age, so, Yeah, no, we didn't get that type of trauma, or at least I did not get that from my parents. That was very short lived. It was more so heavily leaned on time and place and knowing how to respectfully interject to do or say or ask whatever it is you needed to do, say, ask. And then they did a whole lot of conversation on the back end with like, okay, like even if we didn't ask, they'd be like, okay, well, you were trying to do such and such while we were doing such and such. Here's why you couldn't, or here's why we didn't acknowledge in this moment, or here's why, you know, you weren't allowed to come and have 2 cents to say in that conversation. So there was also like, I think they did a really actually incredible job with creating understanding in different ways about different things that I think a lot of kids didn't get the benefit of having. And so it wasn't just the don't touch the stove because it's hot and you have no concept of what hot means. It was don't touch the stove because it's hot, because it will hurt. You know, like when you scraped your knee, that was ow. This is a worse ow that you really don't want to. Like there was some context that then made it, okay, I don't have the pathological demand avoidance now. Like you told me not to do it, so now I do want to do it. That was far less, at least for me, that was curbed because I had context of like, okay, at least now I know if I do it, I totally 100% know what I'm getting myself into. And I can know these repercussions and really think about like, is that really what you want to, because it's on you. And they've now informed you so you can't even say ignorance. Like, you know. And I think that's what helped save me in a lot of situations too, was like they definitely did not create ignorant kids. Like they definitely went above and beyond to make sure we were educated and aware and not only book smart, but had reasonable street smarts and understanding of like time and place. Certain places you should just never be. And if you find yourself in them, here's how you should act and engage. Yeah, like I definitely would say I definitely had a very unique rearing experience. And kind of got informed of that throughout my life. Like different sets of friends groups or acquaintances. Like that was something I heard perpetually. It's like, I love your mom. That's my aunt. Or like, this is my aunt and uncle. They're so cool. Like you got cool parents. Your parents are different. And of course at that time I was like, no, you have no idea. It's the worst. Like shit is terrible here. It's like, okay, yeah, I was dramatic. Had no idea how good I had it in that present moment. And then also I became defensive over it. It's like, where are my parents? Go away, go do something. Not understanding that like some of these people, these children have nothing compared to this. And so this is almost like having a superhero in their midst.
They have the opposite. They have something that's stifling them. And
yeah, and that's what I mean. Like they have no idea what it's like to have this. And so I had to realize like my parents were never going to not love and care on me, and the fact that them sharing love didn't mean that I had any less love, and I knew they weren't going to go out and go adopt 50,000 children. I was going to be forgotten. But sometimes in that moment, like having to remind myself of like, at the end of the day, they're going home to whatever they're going home to. You get to stay here and have these parents.
Yeah.
And that everybody has one of those, you know, I was like, everybody has different experiences, but when it's good, it's great, and when it's not, it's not. Mm-hmm. Like that, and having to understand that, like, everything just is not always going to be peaches and cream. Yeah. Like, there's everybody, because that whole, like, the learning of, like, your parents are still growing, just as you're growing, so are they. Like, really, as I got older and understood that, it gave me a whole lot more empathy for, like, the angry child that I was as a child, was understanding that, like, for all the stuff that I felt like was fuck-ups, it was far outweighed by just the amazing experiences that we had as a family. And then, again, being able to chalk that up, this now understanding of how the brain works and the fight, flight, freeze, and the survival instincts, and how we are naturally prone to remembering the trauma and the negative because of self-defense and wanting to be prepared and not experience that again. Like realizing there's so much and then with trauma, there's so much that gets affected, and so much of the brain that's impacted that we lose so much of the positive. But the more these meditation practices and things of that nature have come into my life, and self-reflection and gratitude practices. Like, so much of that has started to come back. And then talking with you about childhood experiences, excuse me, so much of that has started to come back with like, you had an incredible childhood. And some moments it feels like that wasn't the case because of a certain headspace I can get stuck in, or certain experiences. But when I'm able to pull out and like really expand and think as a whole, especially given who I am today, it's like, oh no, they did an incredible job. And also knowing what they were, I don't want to say up against, but what was dealt to them, what the experience was that was birthed. Yeah, the challenges that they faced, not only with the children that they brought into the world, but the parents they descended from. Mm-hmm. They did an incredible job with, the cards that was on the table. Yeah. Because even I'm like, yeah, bruh, had I had to rear my brothers or myself, boy, sometimes that's why I'm like, I can't have kids.
I don't understand how your mother maintains such a cheery and friendly disposition still. Either of our parents have these dispositions. And I understand a lot of it is you learn to show face if you want certain things out of society. Mm-hmm. But, like, it's just something really, really, like, amazing about.
I think it's also one of those, like, when you've known the depths to the depths. Yeah. And rest my grandparents' souls. But I think my parents and potentially yours, like, when you know the depths of just pain and suffering, and just stuff being just like you have gone through the ringer, like there's a degree. Yeah, there's a degree of like, nah, it just has to be joy. It just has to be love.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're landing, or where we're kind of getting to that place.
Yeah.
But in our way where we're still not willing to sacrifice and give up on the things that we're most passionate about along the way. Like, we're really passionate about making a way, being ourselves, and doing what we love and what we're passionate about.
And I think that's a belief that we are building on, I think, in many ways, of what I think our parents did. You're welcome. Their versions of that, of finding a way to make a way that still feels like it's honoring, who they are and how they were inspired. Like my mom, like writing still being adjacent to her being a creative spirit, a creative soul. And even though the way it's been translated into her work, one could say like, okay, that's not the exact creative thing, but that was, I feel like, a step in a different direction versus someone else who may have gotten some other writing office job that had nothing to do at all with any art, versus my mom, like writing is one of her arts. And so to have gone into speech writing and things of that nature, like it was something where she still got to use that muscle. And I feel like we're building on that sort of notion of doing something. And then even your mom pivoting into real estate after realizing she was burnt out on Hewlett Packard, like being able to grow in different aspects. And I think for their time, finding different ways of like, this probably isn't the expected or accepted thing, but like I'm tired of this other stuff, so I'm finding something else. I'm finding a way to do what I feel like my heart is calling for, and I feel like we're the improvement on that model and are compounding and building on. We can go even further than just finding somewhere or something in society that is adjacent to what my heart sings for and screams for and am passionate about. Like, because we have that faith and belief, we're like, no, I know it exists, or if it doesn't, I can create it. A way that I can exist as myself and be as myself and thrive. And the journey has been uncomfortable, and they've been helping us not be, they're the reason why we haven't been starving artists. But I think one of the things that helps me not feel guilty from receiving that help is because we really are truly creating and building something that will give greater freedom and liberation to all of us on the back end once it is stabilized. Yeah. And will not only help us and our mothers and families, but other people and other artists and other creative souls who are just like, yeah, I can't do it anymore. Like, this is what I absolutely need to do to still stay and be here. Mm-hmm. And I think we're truly taking that at the horn, so to speak, and riding that bull and going through all the bucking and the whipping around of that experience. But that back is getting real lubricated and real nimble on the feet and in the ability to stay on top of the bull instead of being thrown off. Like I would say, like even post Artomatic, still got a strong hands on, the rein, and are really learning to like, all right, when it bucks, this is the position to take to not get thrown off and to stay locked in. Here's how you lock the thighs, keep the ankles clicked in. Like we're getting to that space. And so though it hasn't been pretty, I think it's been damn incredible.
At
the very least. I think it's been absolutely incredible what has been established and built on.
The transformations.
The transformations, what's been transcended and transmuted, and then what's been incorporated, and what's been kind of like what we were talking about earlier in this conversation, where we have meshed and created this super being, this supernova, essentially, because of taking, all right, so that lesson, these lessons, all right, still tinkering and working on that, but like it's at a place where we can still cup it and hold it together to be able to move and to be able to facilitate. I'm just really grateful. Yeah, you're right. It has been a wild 4 years, but even for us, like it feels similar to my parents' marriage. For all of the ow and all of the heart wrench, heartache, there has been so much incredible, so many glowing golden ball core memories that completely outweigh any of the pain, the suffering, the what felt like devastation in the end all be all. Yeah. There's been so much beauty for ashes, literally, like sitting in the phoenix and dragon ash. Like there's been so much beauty to be reborn every time we go through the fire, but continue to hold fast to each other's souls through that flame and come out on the other side of like, all right, yeah, it hurt a little too much to hold your hand through this one, but the soul never unlinked. And so thank you for still sticking it out. Thank you for still being here. Like, I think there's so much that could be, not enough that could be said about that.
Yeah. I'm so grateful to you, to your parents, to just the experience that led us together. All of these things have just completely transformed transformed existence for me. Like my views of the world, of reality, of myself, and of other people. And a lot of it is because some people made some choices years ago to change their lived experiences. And it just, like with hearing the story of your parents has always inspired me. Like that they made choices and they made conscious choices and agreements together to do something, and how they stuck to that and they lived that out. And then just now getting to the point where I'm starting to see those things with my own mother, like how she's made, like me not understanding how she can always be so happy and so chipper with the experience she's had, or with the familiar experience she has, or with the the way certain things work out or operate in her reality that just to me wouldn't work in my reality. And it haven't worked when I try to live according to those same rules and that same way. But seeing how that stuff really does work for her and creates a balance for what her origin story is, helps me find more appreciation for it and inspiration for it, and then more compassion, but that leads to appreciation now, for a greater appreciation for who she is and how she operates now, because it's not she's just this, but she's the result of all of this, and she still finds a way to be joyful, to try to give in the best way that she knows how, and how she's sincerely, intentionally doing the best she knows how to do, and anything that she's not doing well is just like the things that I don't do well. It's wrapped up in fear, it's wrapped up in trauma, it's wrapped up in damage, and a whole bunch of other things that only she can recognize and work through, and that's not an easy decision to make, to recognize and work through something like that, and that you have to have, in many cases, a supportive environment, and an environment that cultivates that, and it's patient and tolerant and loving and endearing, and you have to have the soil in order to be able to sprout new flowers. So I'm just appreciative for this whole experience and how it's brought me to that understanding too. Whereas last year at this time, there's no way in hockey sticks that I'd be able to just give grace. And I see how giving that grace to her now has been giving me more grace for myself, more compassion, and it's more compassion for others now, because I'm sitting here thinking about, it's Mother's Day. I'm sitting here thinking about sending a text to my sister, or sending her an email, since I don't think we can text still. Well, I don't want to send it from the new phone machine, but I'll send her an email, just say Happy Mother's Day, and a couple of the kind words, and state, hey, I'm still open to and waiting for a two-way conversation, face-to-face conversation, whenever you're ready, like that. Whereas me yesterday, I'm like, all right, well, fuck it. Don't need to send that Mother's Day wish. But now it's like, and not even out of malice, just like, okay, that door is closed. But it's still my choice. Like, I mean, she has a choice whether she wants to open it and have that other conversation. My boundary has been set. And she has a choice to, when she wants to come through the gate instead of hopping over my fence again, or knocking over my fence again. But yeah, I love how all of this is just leading to perspective. And again, it all started with art. All started with creativity and getting back to learning self-love. And I wish I could just see how, help let you see inside of my head, so you can see how so much other stuff is connecting and falling into place. Like, throughout this whole conversation, I've had a million side conversations inside of my head that are linking up events, going back to self-love, all that stuff is all tied into this little bit. I appreciate the fact that we get to have a billion conversations like these. And they're all, so many of them are long journeys like this, and marathons, but they're all so different, and they all feel nourishing.
Yeah. Nourishing, that part, yeah. They feel nourishing and feel like they yield something new and different and bring us closer.
Yeah, these like new seeds. Each conversation is like a new seed. And we don't really, it feels like it's a plant, but a seed at the same time.
A sprout and like a sprouting or a flowering and a planting. Yeah, it does.
A conversation we were having with Alexander yesterday too, and seeing him talk about how it just doesn't make sense how DC there's still no community, and how we keep seeing, and I know it's not that there's no community, but that the way community operates is so different and can be so off-putting and scary in this area, this environment. Listening to that conversation and seeing how that's been in my heart for so long, and how it seems like it's in your heart as well in a lot of ways as well, and seeing how it feels like it's happening around us, even though we're not pushing and saying, hey, we need the community, it's naturally starting to form and create. What we were trying to do online is actually happening without having to push and make it happen now. It's just by being ourselves and just engaging with other humans and welcoming people into our world and touching people. It's like, after seeing that conversation and then also recognizing that people appreciate and want to engage with the kind of energy that we operate, that there are people who want to, inspires me to think that we can still find a way to do the things that we were passionate about, where there were some things in my head I was really starting to be like, I don't know if I want to do that anymore.
Yeah, same.
So it's good that I'm sure there are pivots, and it's not going to be in the way that I probably envisioned it before.
Mm-hmm.
But in a lot of ways, it is still. Whereas I was kind of thrown in the towel, like, all right, that's just off the table, in possibly forever.
Refined model.
Yeah, and seeing that there is a need and a hunger for the same thing, and that there are people who do want it, and who are, like Jen's text yesterday, and how she used that word specifically, like, we're really building a community, and how that it hasn't been forced. We didn't force it, or we haven't said, hey, we need to build a community. It's just happening because we're engaging with one another, and we're doing the things. We're having the hard conversations. We're showing love on the other side of those conversations. And like Alexander was saying, it's kind of like building a democracy. You're not just showing each other certain faces so that you can feel protected, and so that you don't create a problem, and so that you don't create some sort of issue with being able to navigate the space.
Yeah.
You're creating the actual space you want to live in.
Creating
and not,
the spaces, the bridges, the
and
middle
not
ground.
compromising on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I really believe we can do we have been doing. And I know we're tired, so right now it's a hard time. It's hard to.
We're learning the season. We're learning the seasons. We're learning how to show up and take care, but then also be taken care of. We're learning how to, like you said last year, like, I'm walking into my season of receivership this year, and how we really are, as we're allowing ourselves to receive, we are receiving. And as we are continuing to affirm and anticipate and expect, the Neville Goddard, like, as we have anticipated and expected receiving without any preface on the how, like, it has continued to show up as we've continued to walk in our own self-trust and awareness and confidence. Everything else around us has moved and been, like, truly, like, when I move, you move. Like, like, just like that. Like, it's literally, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, and the more we're intentionally tapping into that, like, I was literally thinking that on the way home as we were driving home this morning, of, like, we have spent a couple hours being a starving artist, but at every moment where we thought, like, yo, like, it's over, shit is just up, it's $5 in the account, can't eat, it's nothing, someone's been like, yo, are you hungry? Let's go eat.
Yeah.
Or yesterday, like, there's literally nothing in our fridge except for some vegan cheese and beans and rice. And my mom calls, like, hey, I'm at Costco.
What do
you need anything? I'm picking up eggs right now.
Send me a little list.
Like, period. Like, every time it feels like we're at that edge and we don't freak out about it, the door is boom, it's provided.
Down to my sweet potato chips.
Yeah.
Which I was craving the day before yesterday.
And the sweet potatoes. You ain't been talking about sweet potatoes for a couple weeks.
Yeah. And what's funny is with the sweet potato chips too, like, she's like, come on, let's go ahead and put the stuff in the car. I went and put the first bag in the car, and then I went to go get the one out of her car, and took it, didn't even look in the bag, went and dropped it in the car. And immediately, right there on the top of the bag, just sweet potato chips. Message.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It was.
And you realizing, like, I think I manifested that. Like.
And without effort. It's like, yo, I want some sweet potato chips. Oh well, okay, they'll come. And they come that fast. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the magic. There's a whole lot more magic to be made around here.
And how that's like as paraphrasing, as Neville calls it, like, that's the teeny tiny granular level of, like, manifesting the small stuff, but it's the stuff that adds to the real. Like, that was what sent me into that Neville Goddard tunnel hole last year, was seeing how, like, through working through Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, I was able to manifest and shift and change so much in my reality, to the point that I was able to now bridge and have relationship building blocks with my siblings, with my brothers at least, like, being able to see, like, that, then being like, oh, there's something here, and being able to dig further into that, and that's what's gave me the traction and the confidence to, like, oh, I got to keep pulling on this thread. And so it's really cool and inspiring to now see the ways that you're pinpointing and being like, oh, maybe I have been using some of this practice and methodology, it just hadn't registered as being that yet. But like even the small thing with the chips, or not say small, but for lack of a better term, small thing with the chips, realizing like, yo, I called that into my space, and now here it is. And how we go back and forth with.
And your mother didn't even know I love sweet potato chips. She really, when I said it, she's like, oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how like just the other little nuggets that feel like affirmation of like this was on you, that you called this, and how we talk about how we did it with each other, how we called each other into our lives, into this life that we now share together. Like we created this reality. And so continuing to come back to this reminder of we are the original creators of our reality. And so I always laugh at myself, I'll speak for myself, have to remind myself to stop slipping into the mind or the thought that someone else is puppeteering and that I am hapless and can't do anything, reminding myself that like, no, you are the conductor, you are the orchestra leader, you have the stick in your hand, you are waving the wand, you are just now projecting and trying to remove your power and responsibility from that. But homie, if you look who's holding your hands behind your back, it's you. So get it together.
There are no cuffs.
There's no cuffs. It is all you. But to be able to be in a place where that can be recognized, laughed at, but then utilized and bounced back without being angry at myself for it. Because I think that's the biggest difference for me in this season, is having gone through another one of those cycles, but now being able to laugh at it and appreciate it and get the lessons and the growth without the anger and being pissy about why did I have to wind up here again, and daggone it, how did I let myself return to another circulation through that experience. But how having gone through that experience has now made me like, okay, now I see where I'm hopping back on the tracks that I never really fell off of. I just took this little detour that was necessary, and now I'm back on the mainline track. The things are back in accordance. I'm back in alignment, and arguably maybe was never out of alignment. Like there were just different things that needed to be learned, and a couple different gems. Like I got the green one now. Like okay, back in the pocket. You know, the Power Stone has been recouped. We're good. You know, that guy was playing. I was playing Gallagher. It was noticed by myself and others, but here we are. We're back.
That man's playing Gallagher.
We done recouped, and it's like, okay, now you can do something with this. You can move from this space with greater awareness, and now also on similar wavelengths and pages, like to now be in a space where at first I was diving deep into the metaphysical, mystical, and you were just kind of like, all right, cool, that's your bag. But to now be in a different place with conversation, with being like, oh, I see where I've actually been in this bag and didn't know it. And so now we have some shared experience and language that can help us expound on it now together as an even greater force. Because there's now these common threads that this experience helped birth and make possible. So then it's like now we're at the fun part. Yeehaw! Like now we've hit the refrain, we've hit the bridge. Like
here we go, skipping
lines, you know.
Yep. Yeah, man.
Boy.
I'm just grateful, man. This is incredible. And the fact that all it is just a mindset shift for the most part, but also the fact that we're seeing the ripples in reality, and we're seeing the reality change unintentionally. Like it feels like a baby. Like, you know, when the baby first stands up, like maybe lean up against the coffee table and then falls back down. You hear the diaper go. And they sit back down. I think a lot of that has been us getting up for the first crawl, getting off the belt for the first time. There's been the little crying and shit at times because we just don't understand what's going on and don't have any other language for expressing the pain. She got us a whole thing.
Yep.
I've been wanting this big ass Italian seasoning for like a year. This is such a staple for me. So the fact that she got I need to go get the rest of the groceries at the car.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yo, I was thinking, I'm glad I hit record. I think we got our first piece of content for Patreon. This could be a Beyond Words private podcast. We can shift Beyond Words to being a private podcast. since it wasn't really doing much on you on.
Well, remember we said we
YouTube.
wanted to do a couple more intentional ones on YouTube.
Well, this is what I mean. What I was talking about though. You know, how on Spotify you do the little private podcast. I was thinking about doing snippets, and maybe it's not beyond words. Like maybe it's beyond words, something else, like some other name for it, or it could be something completely different. But I think there are pieces of this conversation, like the part when we talk about our mothers. I think that would be a great Mother's Day gift to just share the part with our mothers about us understanding them and appreciating them. I think they appreciate that.
Well, the one thing I was thinking was this one seemed like so good and so meaty. Like this was one I would listen to for like. But I was like, if we put this one with the right title on YouTube, I think this one could give the interest. And that's funny that you said that because I was literally writing down the title idea.
Wow. And I was going to ask you for artwork to make it.
Yep, to go over it. Yep, I was already there mentally. I was already there. We here. You know how we do.
Baby, man. Yeah, I love you, woman. Hold on.
I love you.
Why are your lips not on mine? Well, that was a soft kiss, huh? Thank you, Juicy.
Thank you.
That was fun.
That was mad fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Wow, and look, about to pause at almost 111. That is too dope. Yeah. That's hilarious.